All right, for this explainer, we're cracking open a case file on a whole family of viruses that all have one primary target, the human liver. So welcome to our viral investigation into the 5 main types of hepatitis. And that brings us to the central mystery we're trying to solve today. You've got these 5 viruses, and they're all dangerous for sure. But one of them is a true master of persistence. It knows how to hide from our immune system and set up a silent, lifelong infection. Our job is to figure out which one it is and exactly how it pulls it off. Okay, so every investigation has to start with a lineup, right? Let's meet our suspects. Here they are: hepatitis A, B, C, D, and E. Now, you can see they all share a name and they all go after the same organ, the liver. But it is so important to understand that these are totally distinct viruses. They have very different behaviors, they spread in different ways, and they have very, very different long-term consequences. So any good investigation starts by figuring out the suspect's MO, their method of operation. For these viruses, it really all boils down to 2 main ways they get from one person to another. So the first one is called the fecal-oral route. And, well, it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. The virus spreads when someone ingests food or water that's been contaminated with, well, you get it. The other one is the parenteral route. This is a bit broader. It means any exposure to infected blood or other body fluids. So think things like sharing needles, unsafe medical procedures, sexual contact, or even from a mother to her baby during birth. Okay, so let's sort our suspects based on their MO. Hepatitis A and E, those are your fecal-oral guys. They're often the cause of big outbreaks linked to contaminated water or food. Then you have hepatitis B, C, and D. These are the ones that travel parenterally, through blood and body fluids. And believe me, this distinction, it's our first major clue in figuring out how they each operate and the kind of damage they do. To really dig a little deeper here, let's zoom in on just one of our suspects, hepatitis B. We'll use it as a case study, because when you investigate an HBV outbreak, you learn about 2 absolutely critical concepts that public health officials use to track pretty much any infectious disease out there. First up is something called the epidemiological link. You can just think of this as the classic detective work of tracking a disease. It's all about finding that common thread that connects different cases. Did all the sick people eat at the same restaurant? Did they have contact with the same person? Finding that link is how investigators can literally trace the path of a virus as it moves through a community. The second concept is the window period, and wow, this one presents a huge challenge for investigators. See, in the very early phase of an infection like hepatitis B, a person can be super infectious. They can be spreading the virus everywhere, but standard tests might still come back negative. This creates this incredibly dangerous blind spot, a perfect opportunity for the virus to spread completely undetected. Okay, so we've got the MO down. Now let's look at the impact. This right here is where we see the biggest, most dramatic difference between our suspects, the huge divide between an acute and a chronic infection. Some viruses, like hepatitis A and E, are what you might call hit-and-run attackers. They show up, they cause a short-term acute illness, and then your body's immune system usually kicks them out for good. But then you have the masters of persistence. These viruses can actually evade your immune system and set up a chronic, long-term infection that lasts for more than 6 months, and often for a lifetime. And right here, this is where the evidence just becomes crystal clear. Look at this. Hepatitis A and E, they basically never become chronic. For hepatitis B, it's about 5 to 10% of adults who get infected. But then you look at hepatitis C. A truly staggering 70 to 85% of people who get infected with it will develop a chronic infection. That's just a whole different league. So this brings us right back to our central mystery. With all the evidence laid out, it's finally time to identify our main culprit, the true master of establishing a silent, long-term presence inside the human body. So, which of our 5 suspects is the one that's most likely to dodge the immune system and turn its host into a chronic carrier, just silently damaging the liver for years or even decades without anyone knowing? The answer is, without a doubt, hepatitis C. With up to 85% of all its infections turning chronic, HCV is the undisputed master of persistence. It is, by far, the most likely of all the hepatitis viruses to set up a lifelong and often completely silent infection. So you have to be wondering, how does it pull this off? Well, HCV has a few really clever tricks. First, it has an incredibly high mutation rate. This creates something called quasi-species. You can think of it like a swarm of viral decoys. With so many slightly different versions of itself running around inside one person, the virus becomes a constantly moving target that the immune system just can't pin down. And on top of that, it actively sabotages the body's alarm system by messing with our natural antiviral signals called interferons. So all of this adds up to one incredibly sneaky virus. Its ability to cause a slow, silent infection is exactly what allows it to establish that long-term foothold, doing serious damage for years before a person even realizes they're infected. But here's the final twist in the case. In what is truly one of modern medicine's greatest triumphs, we developed new antiviral drugs that can cure over 95% of hepatitis C infections. It was the first time we could reliably cure a chronic viral disease. And this incredible success leaves us with a fascinating final question. What can the victory over this master of silent disease teach us about how we can approach and combat all the other chronic hidden illnesses out there?